I am experimenting upon an instrument which does for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear, which is the recording and reproduction of things in motion. Oh, and I am a complete piece of shit. Thomas Edison. I'm Shuey, and this is Strangeful Things.
Sheltering in place is not advised, as your survival cannot be ensured in that scenario.
Well, this practically caused me to just get you destroyed.
Unsolved, unresolved, and super complicated.
Strangeful Things.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's Strangeful Things. I'm Shuey, and we'll be telling you the story this week. I am joined by the lovely and talented Mel's.
Howdy do.
And the much less lovely, but still fairly talented Acadia.
How am I supposed to follow howdy do?
I don't think you can.
Gotcha.
Jesus Christ.
Check and mate.
Yep.
To start it off.
Okay, I'm done here, everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, and walks out the room. So, did anything happen big with you guys this week?
Nothing really big here. Just the same old, same old. Rocking my mask, getting my groceries delivered, living the life.
That's all big stuff, Mel.
I know.
Thanks for sharing.
It's big for me.
Brush my teeth 3 out of 4 days, 3 out of 7 days. Okay.
That's right.
Well, sorry, Acadia.
How many?
3 out of 7. That ain't bad.
No. Yeah, I only do it when we're going to be on camera.
No. That's because all you can see are your teeth, so you got to keep those things
I
up.
know, right? Well, I
So
had...
what about you? Anything big?
Oh, lots of things. Number one, I got an El Santo mask that's an actual, COVID mask.
Really?
Yep. So now my
Nice.
face looks like if I wore my mask and that mask over it, it would look like I had a double face. So it's pretty fucking awesome. And my battle with the pool, I was finally victorious, and that shit is as clear as a lagoon.
All
Yeah, so you posted a
right.
picture. That looked pretty sweet.
Fucking right. As opposed to the black lagoon, which is what it looked like before, but whatever. So, yep, other than the crushing shit that is everything else, things are going super.
That is your life. For me, nothing big this week. At the end of this week, I'll be heading down to Alabama to take my daughter home. I'm super psyched about that, in the land of nobody wears masks and,
The
I'm
South.
pretty excited. Right. And I'm bringing one of my daughters who is super everybody should have masks. When we get packages from Amazon, spray them first, all that. So I'm going to end up in a fight.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure this weekend, which is great because when you're as old as I am, all you want to do is fight people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I'm pretty excited. So I'll have a story for the next time I'm on.
That'll be a good fight. Oh, and Mel's, I'm working on, since Shuey's going to be gone, I'm working on a surprise for you.
Oh,
For our
no.
next show.
Lucky you.
Mhm.
What did I do to deserve that?
Shuey left.
Okay.
Yep.
Don't leave,
So
Chewie.
you didn't really do anything.
All right. So this week we are talking about a mystery, but it is also about movies, which means we need to talk about our favorite movies, as I feel that's a good window into people. So I will go first. And I had I struggled with this a lot because I didn't know if I was going to say the movie I'd seen the most, which is probably Star Wars, or if I wanted what genre I wanted. Did I want action or whatever? So I settled on something that kind of has everything in it. It's funny, it has action, and it's a fantasy type thing. The Princess Bride.
Yeah.
I think that's just a perfect movie. Everything about it, from Peter Falk as the grandfather to Cary Elwes and Andre the Giant and all of that. I think everything in that movie is perfect.
Inconceivable.
Did you know the little thing about the hat in that movie?
No.
So Mark Knopfler, the guy from Dire Straits, did the music for The Princess Bride. And he
Right, I
did
knew
so
that.
because Rob Reiner wanted him to. And when he wanted to pay him, Mark Knopfler said, no, just put something from Spinal Tap in the movie. So if you look at the kid's room, on the wall is the hat that Rob Reiner wore all through Spinal Tap.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yep.
great.
Oh, wow.
That's funny.
Never knew that.
Yeah.
See? I'm just a font of knowledge.
Oh, yeah, you got it all.
If I was a font, I'd be college.
You must have been pretty valuable before Google.
That's right. That's true. If I was a font, I'd be knowledge sans serif.
Oh, of course you would. Yeah, I was thinking Knowledge Comic Sans.
No. Ooh. Well, my favorite movies are, everybody knows, Raised in Arizona, then Fargo. But my third one, and I didn't really think about it until today, and I was talking to somebody on the Discord about it, Howley, is Wait Until Dark, which is Audrey Hepburn, and I just fucking love that movie. I love the whole vibe of it. I love the fact that it's so old-timey now. It was old-timey for when you had cordless phones, so forget about how it is now. It's a great pot boiler, I think.
Nice.
Very cool.
Those are good, strong choices. Well, speaking of Rob Reiner, my all-time favorite movie is Stand By Me.
Mm-hmm.
It is my favorite Stephen King adaptation. It is one of my favorite novellas by him, The Body. And so it will forever be my favorite movie. Still makes me cry like a little baby. I know.
What, during the pie barfing sex sequence?
Yeah, that's exactly when I cry. Yeah. And then another one of my all-time favorites that I will watch any time of the year, but especially burn it out in October, is Halloween. So,
oh, nice.
and the original Halloween, the first one, the good one, and yeah. So,
well, all right then.
Excellent choices. All right. So now let's start out the story. I'm going to give you the conventional history of the motion picture, which is what the man has been feeding you for almost 150 years. We start back in 1878, October 19th to be exact, Halloween season.
oh,
A California businessman named Leland Stanford had a friendly bet going with some of his colleagues that when a horse gallops, at some point, all four of its hooves are off the ground.
Man, that's fucking living. Because they all had big sideburns that turned into mustaches, and they're smoking cigars and ruffling giant newspapers when they started talking about it. And I fucking guarantee that the phrase, "I say, old boy," was used.
yeah. And the women were all in some other room, like stuffed into corsets and high button shoes and wishing they could fucking vote or take off their bras at least.
Well, I am quite sure that both of those things are true. Anyway, they got an English photographer named Edward Muybridge to take rapid succession pictures of a horse at a gallop. Muybridge took 12, and honestly, I have no idea how. The cameras back then had that big foof thing, didn't they?
Yeah, you mean like the big fucking, like they filled up that thing with gunpowder so that they
And it was like,
yeah. While they hid under the little tarp.
Yeah.
Well, in my extensive research as I slaved away for you on this, Shuey, I found out that what he actually did was he lined up 12 of those foof cameras in a row.
Oh,
So the horse ran by and he I mean, I don't know how many times it took him to get it right, but he eventually got it right.
okay. So the horse, he set up 12 of these box things.
Yep.
The horse ran by. Did he run into each one and take a photo?
Yes. Yes,
He
he
did?
ran as fast as the horse. Now, I did not find that out whether they were all on a string or a time release, so they had 12 people or what it was. But whatever it was, I mean, the pictures still exist, so obviously he pulled it off. However, it worked.
Oh, okay. I'm just imagining it took several times. That horse was like, fuck you, I'm not riding by here anymore. Right?
Horse is all tired.
Yeah, he's like, God, give me some water. Well, so who won the bet?
I say, old boy, it was Stanford who won the bet because the pictures clearly showed that all four hooves did go off the ground. He probably won a steak dinner or a parcel of stolen land or something like that too. But Muybridge's 12-horse pictures were the beginning of movies. In fact, he went on, with Stanford's patronage, to invent the zoogyroscope in 1879. That was a sequential projector that would let people look at the 12-horse pics in rapid succession.
It took him 2 fucking years to make a flip book of 12 horse pictures.
It took him 2 years to make a zoogyroscope, you uncultured buffoon. And while that was going on,
Harumph.
Etienne Jules Marie, a physiologist, was trying to boost his study of animals. That boost ended up being a camera that could take 12 pictures per second of a moving object. That was called chronophotography, which is a pretty good name, a lot better than zoogyroscope. And that is where things sat until 1888. In America, Edison and his assistant, William Dixon, started stressing that some other clown was going to invent the movie camera first. And that is where we get into how inventions sort of work.
Yeah, it's just people ripping each other off.
Well, there is that, yeah, obviously. But also, people just arrive at the next step because of what happened before them. Sometimes you have a big jump like the airplane, but even with that, there were a lot of examples of how not to build a plane. So when
Like a brick.
Right. The one with like 12 wings and you flapped them.
A cannonball. This will never fly. Boat anchor. Man, we're flying now, Orville.
This ain't working. So with the movie camera, Edison knew that for the past 10 years or so, people had been sniffing around how to make one. That's where the quote from the open comes from, except for the part where he says, I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, well, I added that for historical accuracy.
Indeed. So what inventions do you get particularly jazzed about when you were a kid?
Oh, well, mine was most definitely the Nintendo. And I can remember my dad unboxing that thing and you're just staring at it and you're like, what is this? You know, you're playing video games and of course we had Duck Hunt, but my favorite was Mario. Dun 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 dun. Boom. You know, like I have the entire every level of every world. I have the music memorized, and you know when he goes down the tunnels, it's like boom boom boom. Do, 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 do.
You know where all like those secret mushrooms are and all that,
Yeah.
secret boxes and everything?
I know it all. So for me, it was the Nintendo.
Well, for me, it was definitely the home computer. That shows how old I am. I remember my dad got a K-Pro when I was like in 7th grade or 6th grade or something like that. And it was this big box, like the whole thing was one thing and had like maybe a 7 or 8 inch screen on it. And the keyboard was clipped in and just pulled it out and would start typing. And it had all these games on it that since it didn't have real graphics, it would be like Donkey Kong, but made out of like equal signs and X's and O's and stuff like that.
ASCII games?
Right. It was like H's would make a ladder and O's would be the barrels coming down and, you know,
Oh, that's
Mario was the X.
awesome.
Oh, it was classic. And then when like the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 came out, I was in heaven back then. What's yours, Acadia?
Well, my favorite invention is the seed drill, which was invented in 1701. And it really revolutionized sowing seeds because instead of just throwing them around like assholes, you got to put them right where they were supposed to go. And the reason that that's my favorite invention is because the guy that invented it, his name was Jethro Tull. And that's what the band is named after.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't even know who Jethro Tull is, which is probably most of you.
Shut up.
They were a rock band back in the 70s, the 1970s.
But to be fair, they were old even when we were young.
Yes, I believe Ian Anderson has cancer now, right? He's
Oh.
yeah, he's he's doing pretty badly.
Oh,
Ian
that's
Anderson is the
sad.
guy that people would call Jethro Tull because they thought that that was the name of him, not the name of the band. That's
Right.
why the seed drill is my favorite invention. So there.
They're the rockinest band to sport a flute ever.
I agree. Yeah, they're awesome.
And the reason is because Ian Anderson played the guitar, but then they got somebody in the band that was better at the guitar than him, and they were like, fuck off. And he's like, but it's my band. And they're like, something else to the flute. So, yeah, he had to play something else. So he picked the flute and learned it. And that's why there was a flute in it. So just like why how the podcast went.
Why is Acadia in this? No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
I got kicked off my own show. Anyway, when do we get to my part of the story, old chap? I have been waiting in the wings for quite a while now, and it should be my time to shine.
Whoa, we're getting there. We need to finish with the conventional story. So in 1890, Dixon created the kinetograph, which is like a basic bitch movie camera. Then, to be technical, in 1892, they got to the kinetoscope, which is what could project the moving images onto a screen, which is where movie theaters started in 1894, except Edison called them kinetograph parlors.
Oh, of course he did. Well, you say Dixon did it and not Edison, so why aren't we worshiping Dixon?
Because as we stated, Edison is a piece of shit and was known for taking credit for all of his employees' ideas.
Worshipping Dixon.
Shut up, Acadia. Just fucking worse.
Remind me to isolate that from the from the sound. So, well, I'm gonna contradict myself because, like, this whole thing that Dixon did it, but Edison took the credit. All companies are like that now. So was Edison just ahead of his time? Like, if you do something on the clock, the company owns it. No.
Yeah, well, that's the way it works at my job.
Well, I guess that's true, but Edison still sucked. You'll see. Well, and to go off script, companies take responsibility for it. Edison was so into it, he made it be his invention.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Not his company's invention. It's all got Edison's name on it. Aside ended. Anyway, in 1895, Auguste and Louis Lumière produced the cinematograph in France, which could project 16 frames per second. And essentially, that is what's considered the history of the beginning of movies. I got this outline from pbs.org, believe it or not, and not once in the entire article did they even mention the subject of our story, Louis LePrince.
That's me, and everything you just said was complete merde. But I suppose if anyone wants to discuss it, we can.
Yes, do we want to discuss what merde is?
Merde is shit in French. And since I am very French, that's how I would say it.
That's a merde croissant.
That's right. Croissant, French toast. Oui, oui. So,
And France bread.
and to drink, Peru. So, the way they have it told right now is that the guy took the picture of the 12 horses, or the one horse 12 times, and then that begat this and begat that, and then that begat the relaxing in the kinetograph parlor. I can't imagine convincing your parents to let you go to the kinetograph parlor.
Mom, I was going to go to the kinetograph parlor.
Like, when I think of this, I think of Pee Wee Herman, and I'm like, man, he was in some kind of kinetograph parlor.
He's like, excuse me, I'm at the kinetograph parlor.
Oh!
Put your pants back on.
I know what you are, but what am I? Isn't that what he said?
Little make monkeys, I just trained them.
Stop spinning the porn wheel so fast. The people are going.
Wow, this is a very slow porn.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just 3 seconds of footage over and over and over
man,
again.
and could you imagine if it was just the horse pictures that was playing? That would be terrible.
This is the worst date I've ever been to.
This so wasn't worth a penny.
I wonder how much the kinetograph parlors cost back then.
Yeah, it had to be like a penny or
I
something.
mean, they were competing against shit like wax museums.
It's true. True.
It doesn't move, but it's 3D.
So back to our story. So Louis Aimé Augustin LePrince, who was known as Augustine to people he knew at the time, but is now referred to almost exclusively as Louis, was born in Metz, France in 1841. He studied physics and chemistry in college, but was an artist at heart. He worked as a photographer and a painter, but eventually got a job in 1866 at a brass foundry called Whitley Partners in Leeds, England. He married the boss's daughter, Elizabeth Whitley, who was an artist. 3 years later, in 1869. He moved pretty quick.
Yeah.
In 1881, he and his family moved to New York, where he got a job managing artists. He worked with artists who painted panoramas, and he got interested in the immersive experience they provided. So he, like lots of people we have already discussed, got a boner for inventing movies.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed before, there were a lot of people with those boners.
A lot of boners.
But that is where
That's
it gets
right.
interesting, because film people are pretty particular about what they consider film. See, the Muybridge horse pictures moved when he displayed them as a spinning wheel, but that was not film. And as we discussed, he lined up the cameras in a row. For real film, you have to use just one camera, and that is where LePrince comes in.
Well, it's about time. All I have done so far is have a bunch of different jobs and marry the boss's daughter. I need to remind everyone this fucking episode is about me.
Well, okay. Why don't you get your ass in gear and do something, Louis?
I was being bohemian with my artists in New York City. We smoked a lot of cigarettes and things like that. That's what you do.
All right, then. In 1885, he invented a camera with 16 lenses that was supposed to shoot movies, but that just caused the subject to be shot from 16 minutely different perspectives, and he didn't like it. It also did not qualify as a moving picture, which needs to be shot from a single lens. But it is believed that he started work on the single lens version not long after. His daughter, Marie LePrince, would later say she remembered as a teenager in 1886. 1886.
Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember that.
Hey, don't forget the accent, Louis.
That's right.
That her dad was showing movies on the wall in his workshop. And that year, he applied for a U.S. patent for his 16 lens camera that included wording that would encompass a single lens version. Mels, how important are patents?
Well, some companies exist just because they get paid for the use of their patents every time something like a cell phone is made. So, for instance, according to Engine.is, consider Bluetooth 3.0, a technology incorporating the contributions of more than 30,000 patent holders, including 200 universities, which enables short-range connectivity between the smartphone and other devices. Or the micro SD removable memory storage card, whose more than 800 patent holders make up the SD Card Association. Now, they did an examination of the Samsung Galaxy S2 and found the following patents and their owners. Android OS, owned by Google. Gorilla Glass, owned by Corning, which is Corningware, right?
Yep.
Yes, that is the
This
same company.
very same thing.
Syncing email and calendars, owned by Microsoft. Wi-Fi, owned by AT&T, the University of California, Intel, Nokia, Panasonic, Samsung, and Sony. Wow.
Panasonic.
Yeah.
I thought they just made razors and shit.
I thought they made TVs. But
Do they?
Yeah.
Does anybody buy them?
I have one. That's how
Really?
I know.
You're the person?
I'm the only person. All right. The removable SD card owned by Panasonic, Samsung,
there they are
and
again.
Toshiba. I have a Toshiba TV as well.
Oh boy.
We
You got all the hottest brands from the 80s.
and zero loyalty as well.
guess what? I have a Sony and I have a Samsung. There, that's all the TVs I own.
All right,
outstanding.
all right.
The USB port owned by Intel, HP, Microsoft, and Samsung. The 8-megapixel camera owned by Fujitsu, Samsung, and Sony. I've never heard of Fujitsu before. Wait, do they make cameras?
Yeah, remember Fujifilm?
wait.
That's Fujitsu.
Okay, and literally I just said the 8-megapixel camera. That's so stupid. All right. And that's a partial list, so you get the idea, right? Patents are big money, and suing over patents is a huge deal.
Now, LePrince fought the patent battle for 2 years, and then he moved back to Leeds, which some say was a move to hide his work from industrial spies.
Edison.
Probably. On October 14th, 1888, LePrince gathered his son, a friend, and his in-laws in the Leeds suburb of Roundhay. He asked them to walk around in a circle while he fucked around with this 40-pound mahogany box that he was holding. They did, and he captured them doing it. And it was then, around the same time that Edison was worried about someone going to invent movies, but 2 years before Dixon's kinetograph, that the first film was ever shot.
You think of that?
Wow.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. I'm also hung
That's
up on this
huge.
mahogany box. I mean, my gosh, 40 pounds?
Yeah, I used to complain about like the old camcorders that were like 10 pounds.
I know,
Well,
right?
How did he, so he got his people together and he's like, all right, now walk around in a circle. And so they do. And they're like, well, what did you do? How does he explain it? Like, if they don't have any way of understanding what a movie is, because there's never, well, see, what I did was I took your picture. Okay, so it's a camera. Well, no, it's more than that. It's, well, what do you mean? It's a camera. Look, it looks just like
Just leave me alone, gosh.
just forget it.
You'll see.
You'll see.
You'll all see.
You'll all see. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monster Hour, an actual play podcast about going to school, arguing with your parents, and ruining your favorite outfit while hunting horrible monsters. Narrative-driven and crisply edited with painfully relatable characters. Monster Hour follows unlikely heroes JR,
Super suspicious. That's sort of my deal.
Constance,
I may be a bit of a know-it-all, but I might actually know it all.
and Alvin
I'm monstrous.
as they unravel the sinister mysteries of a strange Colorado town. If you're a fan of Stranger Things, Buffy, or The Adventure Zone Amnesty, you'll love Monster Hour. Tune in for new episodes every other Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
The camera worked by him turning a crank, like you see on old cars, and a light-sensitive paper being run in front of the lens. And that is how all movie cameras that used film worked after that. So if they can get patent money out of a USB port, how about the fucking way movie cameras work?
That's right, I did it. And what's more, I can prove the date because one of the women in my movie died on October 24th, 1888. And I could not have had her walk around my movie if she was dead. But
That's a good point.
I have some problems still. The paper I used to make my movie does not, shall we say, lend itself to being projected. And also, I have not invented the projector, just the camera.
That's right. But in 1889, LePrince decided to use celluloid instead of paper. Mel's, what does that mean?
Well, celluloid was the first thermoplastic. And this is very high tech for me, all right? The first version from 1856 was called Parkasine. The second was xylonite in 1869 and finally registered as celluloid in 1870.
I have to say, I wish it was still called xylonite because that's a pretty cool fucking word. But now I can project it just like I filmed it and it makes everything easier. I am definitely going to be famous now and known forever as the inventor of the motion picture, yes?
Oh.
No. You showed movies to the National Opera in Paris on March 30th, 1890. Ferdinand Maupassant, the secretary of the opera, testified in an affidavit that he had seen the projector in action. So LePrince wrote to Lizzie, who was back in New York with the family, that he was going to come to America to show everyone his movies in September of that year, 1890. This is 3 years before Edison publicly showed anything. See, in Britain and France, LePrince got the patent for the single lens camera, but none of them were written thoroughly enough to make him the inventor. So he would have to show everyone to make it beyond all doubt.
So what we've learned at this point is that while he got the patents, he kind of wrote them fucking vague shitposty way.
Yeah, they weren't specific enough to matter.
Yeah.
So that kind of sucks. But I guess it's kind of like you can tell someone to suck it if you actually show everyone your movie. So I gotta say, his plan was sound. Like I can't bitch about him too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel bad for the guy. I mean, geez, like he jumped through hoops to do all of this.
Yeah. And we still never heard of him before, we did the research.
Yeah, I was about to say, I still have no idea who this guy is.
So LePrince was visiting his brother in Dijon, France, before he left for New York. It was September 16th, 1890. At 2:37 p.m., he boarded a train for Paris. He was supposed to go from France back to Leeds, where he would get his camera and projector and all his other stuff, and then go to New York to reunite with the family. And then he would show the world what movies were. All he had with him when he got on the train was a suitcase with a bunch of his latest patent paperwork in it. He was never seen again.
Well, shit. I guess that's the end for moi.
Yup. Somehow people lost a 6'4" Frenchman with a black suitcase on a goddamn train. Now all his shit was safe and sound in Leeds, but since he was missing, his family could not cash in on the patents. The law is apparently 7 years. So while Lizzie was stuck waiting and with her husband gone, Edison swoops in and creates the story I told you at the beginning with the kinetoscope stuff. Pretty shitty, right?
Man, that's terrible. I mean, you just fucking disappear?
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
I really got a long, lean bone job on that one.
I just think it's so crazy that we've never heard of the guy.
Well,
Or that something on PBS's site all about motion picture doesn't even fucking mention him.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well,
it's a fucked up story, but it gets fucked upper.
Oh, it does.
yes, it does.
Oh, it does.
It gets super strangeful.
All right. So let's talk about the theories as to what happened to him. None of them have any evidence, so we might as well wing it. Acadia, what's the first?
I was murdered by that shitter Edison and he stole my idea. Well, not him in person, but his henchman, you know. And my wife believes this theory.
Well, he does seem like an asshole.
Oh, and he was. And in 1898, he sued another company called American Mutoscope and Biograph Company for infringing on his kinetoscope patent.
Ugh.
And Mutoscope called LePrince's son Adolph, who took a year off from Columbia to put together the evidence that his dad had invented the movie camera and Edison was full of shit. This would put Mutoscope in the clear, apparently. And he did it because he produced the death certificate of his grandmother to prove that the movie taken in Leeds was before October 24th, 1888. But here's where it all falls apart, see? The lawsuit didn't take the British and French patents into consideration, only the U.S. one.
Mm.
And remember when I said he worked on the U.S. one for 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the fight was over the phrase one or more lenses, which LePrince had included, but the patent office removed. They insisted that a single lens camera patent already existed, and it did, but it was for the still camera, not the movie camera. But they still took the one or more lenses phrase out of the U.S. patent.
Well, what's the big deal then?
Well, Edison's team said there was no way to prove the 1888 film was not shot with the 16 lens camera, which there wasn't. And since LePrince's patent was only for a 16 lens version, Edison's claim to having his single lens version stolen held up. The legal battle went on for years, but you can guess who won. the one we all know about.
Yeah.
Oh, and the son ended up shot dead in the woods 3 years after the trial.
Oh my God.
It was either an accident, suicide, or murder. Your guess is as good as anyone's.
So you know what's funny about this is that I only knew Edison for his light discovery. I didn't really even know about this. So
Oh, yeah.
the school system has failed me.
Well, there's a lot of stuff he did that was shitty. Like, he invented the electric chair, or had somebody invent the electric chair, to prove how bad alternating current was, the kind of power we use now, because it was different than his direct current. He even electrocuted an elephant to prove how dangerous alternating
Oh
current
my,
was.
this fucking asshole.
This guy would do freaking anything to win.
Well, but how did that not work? How did people not go? Like, if you saw an elephant get electrocuted, wouldn't you go, well, maybe we shouldn't put this in our house?
Well, because it all ultimately came down to money, and it came down to alternating current. You know, you can build a power station that powers all of Manhattan. With direct current, you'd have to build a power station every half mile or quarter mile or something, and it would only be able to power like that block.
Yeah, but think of all the jobs it would create.
Yeah. We could have every other house in your neighborhood could be a power station.
There's just basically a bunch of D batteries taped together.
Now, see, the only thing is, like, if they had the technology they have now, like now you could prove, I bet, that LePrince's camera wasn't the 16 lenses, because there would be slight differences in the angle.
The film still exists
for each film. Like, each cell would be from a slightly different angle, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But and honestly, I'm not 100% sure why he thought, 16 lenses would be better. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like he was wobbling the camera back and forth to create the illusion of movement. But like, if you look it up online, you can still see that movie of the people walking around in a circle.
Well, I'm just don't understand why people are so fucking horrible to elephants. I mean, sorry, don't mean to like derail this from the subject at hand, but I mean, what the fuck?
Yeah, well,
yeah. But like, even during this time, I think I read something where something happened with an elephant, and they like hung the elephant like in Times Square or something stupid like that. Didn't something like that happen to you around this time? So I'm like, what the fuck is everyone's problem with elephant?
Leave the goddamn elephants alone.
I know. Shit. They're very peaceful.
Yeah, what did they do?
Peaceful animals.
What did they do?
The fuck alone. Sorry.
Stop scaring them with mice and making them jump up on little stools.
Jump up on
stools.
stools.
Sorry I went on that tangent, but Jesus. Ugh.
That's okay. I love elephants too much. All right. So, Mel's, why don't you tell us the next theory?
His brother killed him. So, dig this. Their mother died in 1887, and Louis had gone to see Albert to get his share of the inheritance. And since nobody but Albert ever said they saw Louis get on the train, some people think he never did because Albert took care of business back at the house.
Hey, Louis.
Oh.
How loaded was the
was the mom?
It was the equivalent of, I think, $140,000 today, so probably like $9.
Oh my!
That doesn't seem like killing money. I don't know.
That's
a lot of money, but
this doesn't make any sense to me.
Your brother?
I don't know if I'd kill a sibling over $9.
And plus, he had to be pretty loaded anyway, right? Because wasn't he the married to the daughter of the person who owned the company he had worked
The foundry? Yeah. Oh, but we'll get to that too.
Oh.
Because I did some more research.
All right.
Earning his keep. I needed to learn a little more about myself.
So the last one we're going to discuss is that he committed suicide because none of his shit was working and that he was in a ton of debt. I don't think this makes much sense because either the brother was in on it or he jumped off the train and was never found. That's just stupid. But there was a letter that Louis sent to Lily in April of 1890 where he was saying the projector wasn't working right. And
I hope to send the word it is in my next, and also some cash, which unfortunately I've not had at hand, and it makes me feel uneasy as I know you do not make much just now. So, Louis lent the Whitley side of the family money for a business venture that went shitty.
Oh.
And since he was busy inventing cameras that he wasn't selling to anybody, he hadn't had an actual money job for like 3 years up to that point. But the thought process was, well, fuck, we'll be fine as soon as everybody understands that I invented the movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because then you'd get all sorts of money.
Right.
So, and also the inheritance thing, like, I don't think you go and get the inheritance and then go, oh, I'm poor, I'm going to kill myself. That doesn't make any sense.
Right. And I was going to say, I guess the inheritance thing makes more sense now, knowing that he would need some type of, cash or whatever to help him out.
Yeah. But I think you should tell them the part where my murderer is found, because the earlier part where I said there was no evidence was a big lie.
Ha ha ha. All right. Well, we talked about the Edison stuff, and it seems implausible. But, Mel's, can you read from the article The Disappearance of Louis LePrince by Atrayi Gupta?
Well, I would love to.
Excellent.
So, enter Alexis Bedford, a graduate student at the University of New York. Bedford, who is studying chemistry and photography, has been doing research into the history of motion pictures for the past year and a half. His search has often led him to the inner forgotten archives of the New York Library, which is where he made his discovery. It was also where the library ghost was at in Ghostbusters.
It's true.
Ooh.
All right, sorry.
Damn it, Slimer.
No. All right. I've always admired Louis LePrince, stated Bedford, but really not much was known about him because of his sudden disappearance. You can say that again. As Bedford relates it, he was turning over some papers on Thomas Edison's work with lighting methods when he stumbled across a dilapidated, leather-bound book. The book would turn out to be one of many notebooks in which Edison was fond of jotting down ideas and test data. Leafing through it, explained Bedford, I merely thought I'd find perhaps some interesting and as yet unknown processes that Edison had tried in the laboratory. I never thought I would stumble upon this. He had found a small entry dated September 20th, 1890, by Edison's own hand, which read, Eric called me today from Dijon. Not Grey Poupon. Sorry. It has been done. Prince is no more. This is good news, but I flinched when he told me. Murder is not my thing. I'm an inventor, and my inventions for moving images can now move forward. Holy shit. Is that real?
According to the article, it was determined to be genuine, which means that he really did fucking do it. But that opens up way more questions in my mind, because, like, A of all, why didn't he just go to Leeds and steal the camera? B of all, the fuck took him 2 years to invent it after he got rid of LePrince? Like, didn't he steal the shit in the suitcase? You know what I mean?
Right.
Was his plan like, oh, I'll throw him off the trail by inventing something shittier 2 years later?
Yeah.
Well, maybe Eric screwed up and LePrince was holding the case when he got thrown off the train.
Or else he bashed him with the suitcase and then said, oh, this is evidence. I better throw it in the river.
Yeah. Well, also, I'm wondering, okay, so Edison was in the States, right? And LePrince was in Leeds when he got on the train. Is that right?
He was on his way from Dijon to Paris to go on to Leeds and then on to New York.
Got it. So I'm wondering if it just took a while for him to even get that suitcase. I mean, I don't think it would take 2 years, but I'm just wondering how long it took him if he did get the suitcase. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't think 2 years, but if it took him, I don't know, like, let's say 9 months, I'm just using that as a throwaway.
Right.
to receive the suitcase, then he would have to study what was in there and then steal it and come up with something.
Yes,
So
that's
maybe
true.
that 2 years does make sense.
Yeah. Well, maybe he was still having problems with it, and whatever plans or whatever Edison was able to get, he needed to modify them to make it work right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was one thing that Edison was good at, was perfecting other people's inventions.
Obviously.
Well, he had shit to perfect too, because LePrince apparently wasn't happy with the projector. It was too bright and the picture jumped around. And I don't know, like, if you have literally nothing on the planet to compare to, I don't know why you're shitting on yourself. Like, that's the
Right.
Like, this is the worst movie camera on the planet. Also the best, but I'm going to focus on the worst.
The fact that it's the worst.
Jesus Christ. So Edison gets all the credit. He killed the guy.
Yep.
We have photographic evidence. Like, we literally have the evidence of the fact that he invented it beforehand, and it still doesn't break through.
Well, there's a lot of shit like that. Like, we still, they still talk about Columbus, even though there's a million, well, not a million, but there's a lot of evidence that a lot of people were here before him.
Yeah.
But we still talk about Columbus. We still have Columbus Day
He was a
and all that
shithead.
bullshit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Ugh.
Don't even get started on that ass. We've had enough ass in this story already.
That's right. So Edison invented the light bulb and the record player and had to fucking horn his way into the movie camera too.
Well, don't forget, he didn't really invent the light bulb. He just made it better.
Well, yeah, but
He made it commercially viable. Like, other people had done it, he just came up with a better filament so it wouldn't burn out fast.
what a shitter.
Yeah.
So it's
And
just
I've
another
got-
thing that he just perfected.
Yeah, and I've got 2 lamps in this house that have Edison bulbs in it, and I'm throwing that shit in the fucking garbage
That's
as soon
right.
as I'm done with this.
You tell him that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to throw my record player in the garbage because I do need that, but I don't need these fucking lamps.
I need my, is it one of those ones that like is made to look like old timey?
No, it's an Audio Technica, so it was a little bit buddy. That's why I can't throw it away.
Oh.
Now, if it was one of those ones that, I don't know, just
Looks like a suitcase or something.
looks like a suitcase, then I might kick it to the curb. But well, that's a hell of a story, Shuey. I mean, history is pretty fucked up. And if you want to discuss it further, you can visit me on Twitter at MelsBells84 and Instagram at SuperficialMels. Shuey's Twitter and Insta are ShueyTime. Acadia is at Acadia on Twitter, and you can follow the show as well at StrangefulPod.
And if you have a minute, please rate and review us from wherever you listen to the show. It will really help us get noticed by new listeners. And tell your friends too.
Yeah. And if you don't have any friends, make some friends and then tell them. Use the show as the icebreaker.
There you go.
You can just, sidle right up to them and say, "Did you know that Thomas Edison didn't invent the movie camera?" And they'll reply, "I didn't know that he did invent the movie camera." Because I had literally never thought of it before. You just opened your mouth. Also, I don't know you.
Why are you talking to me, you strange person?
Also, who are you?
Yeah, exactly. Please stop taking things out of my grocery cart.
I see you.
Yes. So if you really, really like us, I mean, the rate and the review is the superest greatest thing that you can do that's free. But if you want to up your game or whatever like that, you can go to patreon.com/strangeful and become a patron. And then if you're a patron, then you get a bunch of extra shit that we do. That's way better than this. It's way better.
Oh, it's way
So,
better.
Yeah, if you think this is good, you should see what else you get. Oh, baby.
Oh, boy.
Ooh, ooh.
No, seriously. Thank you to all our patrons, and we hope you're getting your money's worth. Also, you get a sticker.
Yeah.
It was my sticker. I became a patron. I never got a sticker.
I'm going to give it to you when you come down here.
Oh, my
What?
patronage doesn't cover postage.
No, I want to mail you the Rona.
That's true. See, Katie is always trying to be like conscious of what's going on.
Yes. You know how many people with the Rona
That
would
is
touch it
thoughtful.
between here and there?
That's a good point. You can keep the sticker for now.
All right, fine.
Well, thanks
Well, I guess
everybody for
that's it.
listening. I think
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's it, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Count your blessings.
keep on flapping.
A bird fell in my pool.
Oh
And I
no!
told him to
It's
keep
not.
on
Did you
flapping.
tell it to keep on flapping?
Yes, I did say keep on flapping, and I fished him out and I put him on the bench and let him dry out, and he was just a fledgling, and I think that's how he ended up in there in the first place. But I thought it was touch and go for a while, but then he eventually went off into the woods.
Oh, thank
So-
goodness.
I don't know what happened after that.
Oh, he's
might
fine.
still be in there.
No,
Yeah, I'm
sure
sure
he's
he's
flapped
fine.
away. He flapped away.
Yeah, because I told him
You
keep on
gave
flapping.
him the inspiration to keep on
You
flapping.
gave him hope.
That's right. All right, then I guess we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye bye.